Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Excited for today's episode. We are talking with a leadership coach, speaker, and educator. And what he does is he helps people lead better, love better, and live better. Excited to be rocking out today with Matthew Brackett. Hey, Matthew, ready to rock?
I am. Thank you, Tim. Great to be here and to be with your people.
Awesome. Well, we always start off here on a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business that we can be inspired by.
A story of success. I know you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, so I have great admiration for any entrepreneur to step out of that comfort zone and to start their business. I think we all know that it's hard at the beginning.
Mhm.
So I think the first success is really in my life and in many of your people is probably just taking that step out of the comfort zone and starting something new with creativity. Um, so that's what I would say that's my first success is stepping out of a definitely a comfort zone and into entrepreneurship. And the second one is part of that is having a plan. I think it sounds basic, but having a vision and a plan of different steps to get there. And what's been helpful for me is also bringing a lot of people on that journey, part of that journey. Supporting myself with a network of entrepreneurs who've walked the walk before me. So much to learn from them, and so much insight. So I think that's another little piece. I suppose I'm talking not just one success, but a lot of pieces of the puzzle of success of
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. Um, and those are some really just leaning on other people, learning, and then the consistency.
Yeah.
That's another piece of the puzzle is the compounding effect of consistency of how important it is to do stuff on a consistent, constant basis. And I'm sure I've just thrown out a few things that have been helpful for me and may be helpful or probably resonate with your people.
Well, it's
And
funny.
then go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, it's funny that you say that, just having the courage to jump out because I think you're right. A lot of entrepreneurs are not entrepreneurs on purpose. They sort of find
Right.
themselves in that situation because whatever for whatever reason. So, and on the other side of it, you know, having the courage to jump out of that workforce, you know, it can be pretty scary. I
It
think anyway. I
is.
think it's probably the reason why most people don't do it, right?
Right. Well, safety security is a big thing for us as human beings, and stepping out of the normal workforce into entrepreneurship, it's a risk as well, right? And it can definitely be scary. Everyone that does it, I'm sure, has so many skills, and but stepping out of those structures, you have to create your own structures, and that's why I think another thing that's been helpful for me is just really through knowing myself is setting up routines and habits that help me to do all the other things that I already said. Right? To have these because when we step out of that structure, which might be the workplace, a schedule, or having to go to work, we step into our own space, and we have to create our structure. We have to create the routines that help us to be successful, and also about taking care of our priorities, which is something that I like to talk a lot about.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that. We do have to create and that's the thing. Having an employer, they tend to create those structures for you, and you just
Right,
basically follow them, right?
right,
But when
yes,
you don't have that employer kind of breathing down your neck and telling you, do it or else you get fired, sometimes it's hard to muster up that discipline.
it can be hard. And I suppose now we're talking about success. I think some of the difficulties, challenges that I've had is also in that I wouldn't consider myself naturally to have an entrepreneurship spirit, right? And as you said, some of your audience probably just found themselves in that. It wasn't a choice, but they said, well, maybe it just made sense that they try it out. Because it's a special spirit. I think that that an entrepreneur has to have tons of meaning and purpose and motivation and very passionate about the things, and they just have to really bring together so many skills. So I think it's been a challenge for me. I don't know if I really have the entrepreneurship spirit, but I definitely wanted to try it out, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with the experiences that we have in the workforce in the first place. Because for me, I mean, my experiences were probably very different. I didn't really ever experience any type of security in a
Mm.
workforce. I got laid off while I was a co-op student, and
Oh
then I got
wow.
laid off again when I was in my career because the company went bankrupt. So like it was just like I was always in a situation where I didn't really know what was going to happen next month.
Right.
pretty
So
much my entire time.
there
Yeah,
wasn't
so
that sense
that's
of security and safety. Hmm.
no. And so
Right.
for that, I mean, I know that I was brought up the same way with the same types of thoughts that, go get a job, get a secure job and all that. So I did have that kind of base, but in my experience of it, it was like, I don't really have much control over this thing.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why you go get a job in the first place. And I think
Yes.
that nowadays, especially in the last several years, I think that the workforce is starting to turn into that. So I would guess that there'd be a lot more people that wouldn't have experienced that real solid security of having a job and climbing a ladder and being there for 30, 40 years. So I imagine that it's going to be easier for people to make that switch now. But now, as you said earlier, what about the plan? Like, like what do you do when you do that? Because we don't get really taught in entrepreneurship in
Right.
schools, do we?
That's right. No, 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 not at all. No, not at all. So it's a special spirit, but then I think you just surround yourself with the right people and tap into the right resources so that you know how to make a plan
Yeah.
and what that plan looks like, how to execute on the plan, how to be consistent. And there's so many tricks of the trades, and now with social media and everything, it's constantly evolving. So it's a very changing market, and it's hard staying on top of that. So I think bringing on certain people, or for example, I have a social media team because that's not somewhere where I want to be spending my time, right? But you need to see where do you want to invest your time, and where do you want to outsource that time and energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So now for you, when you made that leap, did you like go full time right off the bat? Did you start part time? Like how was your leap?
I went full time. It really had to do with a much bigger life decision. I was in the field of religious ministry, formal religious ministry for 30 years. And then I was also active duty as a Navy chaplain. So I finished my time in ministry, finished my time in active duty, and started a master's degree and started my business.
Wow. Okay.
And so,
Wow.
yeah, it was, it was, I did experience definitely the fears and insecurities of those at the beginning of that because it was a huge leap.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So now during that leap, is there anything like because we do talk about the bad note, what was it something that didn't go as planned that we can learn from?
A few, yes. Let's see. Probably a whole list of things. We could go on for a while, but I think it's and I think I'm a planner, so I planned well. But one of the things that I made a mistake where I spent money. There's a lot of great marketers out there that don't sell good products. And for all of us who are that we might get caught by the shiny stuff that say, "Oh, this is a solution, easy solution to my problems," and we might throw money at it, and and realize no, not a good decision. So, in the entrepreneur, just you really got to do your due diligence, do your homework, be cautious because there's a lot of people that, like I said, are great marketers but don't necessarily deliver on good quality products. And we're looking to support ourselves with solutions. So it really have to be very diligent in doing your homework. So I think I wasted money and resources in those things trying to find the way. I just didn't know.
Mhm.
So I think ask advice, ask around as well, so that you're not wasting time or energy or resources on stuff that's not gonna do it. That
Yeah.
would be that would be one thing. And then I think just again, it's a personality thing, but I think sometimes it can be an overwhelming experience. And when I am overwhelmed, sometimes I am less productive, and that's to my own detriment. So it's so that I can be caught spinning my wheels. I can get down in a funk, and that's not. I mean, we can't give ourselves that luxury, at least in entrepreneurship at the beginning. So those, to understand your personality style, understand what is going to make you tick really well, what's going to help you, right, and to put those things in place and to understand what might drag you down, so that you can pay attention to those. So I had those moments where I was just a little stuck and spinning my wheels and not progressing, and again, and productivity is really important, especially at the beginning of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, as you mentioned before, without having that boss to tell you what to do when you're spinning your wheels, you've got to figure it out yourself while your wheels are spinning. Right? So it
Right.
can
Yes.
be challenging, right? Yeah.
Right. And motivation is a huge thing.
Yeah.
and then sometimes in entrepreneurship and in life in general, but we can have just other moments where we sort of question, why am I doing this? Or, we lose sight of the North Star and we kind of lose direction, or, and then there's that sort of darkness or confusion. And so being able to find the meaning and the purpose as soon as possible, being able to find the energy and the motivation. I really believe that motivation is very linked to meaning. I call it the M&Ms. So yes, so the meaning and the motivation is just, but there's a lot of knowing ourselves, knowing how we function, knowing what helps us. And also very well knowing those little things that can get in the way, those obstacles, and oftentimes very subtle, that can trip us up. So a lot of self-awareness is very important in all of this.
Now, and you had mentioned earlier about, routines and rituals and, things you have in place that make you practice, that get you better at what you do. And I've always found that that's been useful, especially when I'm in a funk. I mean, if you've got sort of some monotonous tasks that you have to do every day and they're very well like laid out, those are great places to go to. I
Right.
find anyway, when you're like, okay, I'm not feeling it right now. I'm going to go do this mindless thing for a little while, which is
Right.
technically what your boss would have told you to do, right? But if you have
Right.
these things laid out, like what do you do? You have any sort of like routines or anything that's kind of laid out for you that makes things easier?
Yes, yes. And when I work with people, I ask them because of my individual coaching work that I do, or teaching or speaking engagements. It's more, usually they can fit on one hand. Usually there's a set of routines or habits that help you to show up better in life. And it's really important to identify and to build your life around those. So for me, an early rise is really important. And when I don't do that, it affects a lot of aspects about my life. I feel like I already I'm behind from the get go. My energy is a little bit lower. I'm not, so the early beginnings. Exercise for me is very important. And I discovered that years ago, just how important that is for my own productivity, for my moods, for my spirit. And so that's sort of a non-negotiable, right? So what are our non-negotiables in life that help us to be better, to show up better? And then what you said, lead better, love better, live better, right? What are those non-negotiables that really help us to stay centered, right? And because then we're going to do everything better. Social life is important for me. So if social interaction, not to overdo it, but, being with people, I find is energizing. So everyone needs to find what is energizing for them. And then quiet, I like music. So I also listen to music. And then I just take some quiet time, what people call it meditation, whatever mindfulness, that quietness, and then just really being able to sit with ourselves in a peaceful manner. And what I would call also being at home with ourselves and with silence, I think is also a very important thing. Hard to do. But it's also can be very important for us in the bigger picture of life and how we interact with ourselves, and then how we interact with our priorities, with our inner circles, with the people that are important to us, and essentially also with our clients. And then I think just make sure that we're producing something every day. The sense of accomplishment in us as human beings is very important, because that creates that virtuous cycle. So those would be some of the things that I sort of hold as those big rocks that I build my life around, are non-negotiables.
Love it. Okay, so now how do you make sure that you do all those things? Like, do you ever fall off the wagon on any of them?
Oh, of course I do. Yes. Yeah, I don't want to be saying this like, well, holy smokes, this guy has an ideal setup, right? And he's so perfect at it. No. I fall off the way. It's a daily commitment. All right, this is what I got to do. Some people are just very good at it. I wouldn't consider myself very disciplined and organized, and so it's something that I have to do on a regular basis. But it would sound, I lived a very disciplined life and organized life for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And always everything was always planned and scheduled, but naturally I wouldn't consider myself so that's the whole thing that I go back to when I taking things into my own hand, becoming my own boss is a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Because it's about holding myself accountable. It's about setting up my commitments and holding myself to those commitments. So do I fall off the wagon? Yes, I do. Right. And it's about not getting stuck in sort of discouragement and frustration, but getting back on. Tomorrow's a new day. This is what I'm going to do. And then really paying attention to the results that I want. And I'm not talking about monetary results, but even just the results of I want to feel good. I want to have energy. I want to show up better in life for myself and for others. And that I know that when I do these things, I will
That's what
show
it
up
is.
better. Right.
Yeah.
So these results, they're often not tangible results, but they're what I would call invisible results, internal results. So it's about paying attention to those and saying, all right, I want that so much that I'm going to do these things because essentially this is what I want.
Hey Rockstar, I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. If you didn't know already, my business is Creative Crew Agency. We build websites. Now, let's talk about your website for a minute. Most people realize that at this day and age, we need a website, but we don't really know what the website is supposed to do. And sometimes you'll just go and build a website for the sake of building a website. What I do is I make sure that your website actually accomplishes a goal. Now, there are three main goals to most websites. Number one is to provide information and build credibility. Number two is to schedule some sort of appointment and get them onto a sales call. Number three is to sell something like an e-commerce site. Now, when you're setting your website, you have to be very mindful that the visitor doesn't know what to do. And so you have to provide them with a roadmap that leads them down a path to wherever you want them to go. On my website, I want them to be on a free consultation. So that's why when you go to creativecrewagency.com, you'll see information about scheduling a free consultation. Now, for you though, I'm going to provide you with an extra link so that you can get your free website audit. Go to creativecrewagency.com/free website audit and schedule an audit with me, and I'll go through your website live and determine what we can do to improve your conversions and make sure that you're getting the business from your website. Go to creativecrewagency.com and we'll see you there.
Right on. Yeah. That's awesome. And that's a huge and one of those things is knowing yourself as well, because I know that you mentioned, early rising, for example. I'm a late person. I
Right.
work better at nighttime. There are different people with different things. So identifying, what those five things or six things that you said are is a huge first step. And then I like what you like. I mean, everybody falls off the wagon every once in a while and keep beat themselves up. And next thing I remember this analogy of someone saying, if your phone falls down, and you get a little crack on it, you like take a hammer to it. Oh well, I broke it. I might as well.
I might as well destroy it. Right.
Yep, I might as well destroy it now. And that's how some people will handle something if they fall off the wagon. Well, might as well overdo it. Like
Right.
that's not how it works, right? I mean, if something happens, if you fall over, you get back up and you just keep going. I think that there's another part. This book has come up a few times. It's called Atomic Habits. I'm not sure if you ever read
Yes.
it, but
Mhm.
fantastic book. And what
Right.
they said is that we tend to think about people who have like, so for example, somebody who's very, very fit. They're very, very in shape. We think, wow, they must have such great discipline. They go to the gym all the time. They don't eat any bad food and all that stuff. Wow, like I wish I had that type of willpower, right? But it
Right.
turns out that that's not the way it works. The people who have those lives have actually constructed their life so they don't have to use their willpower at all. Like
Hmm.
it's and that's a huge thing. We think that, oh, it's you know they must walk through an aisle of junk food on the way to the gym every day. No, they don't.
That's right.
Right? The gym is probably downstairs, and there's nothing between the gym and there's no
All
junk food
right.
in their house. That's how they create their life, right?
Yes. It's about intentionality is so important, right? Intentionality. No one grows unintentionally and we don't go uphill unintentionally, right?
Yep.
Unintentionally, we slide downhill, right?
Yeah.
Because of the gravity. So that's just the natural of intentionality in our growth, right? So we can, and again, comparison is never helpful. So when we look at people and then we can like, oh, they have it all together. No, I look like I have it all together for a lot of people, right? I go to the gym every day, but why? Do I love it? No, it's hard to get there, but I know how I'm going to feel and how it's going to be helpful in my day. It's a struggle every day, but it's become part of my routines. And so I don't discuss with myself, am I going to do this or not? Same thing about
No.
food, nutrition, right? Yeah, I don't I don't have junk food in the house. I'm very careful about that. Yeah. Do I do it sometimes? Of course I do. Right. But generally, because I know if I have it there, then I'm gonna, and then I know how I feel when I indulge on junk food, and I said, well, I don't want to feel like that, right? So I think having the bigger picture of who we want to be, how we want to feel, how we want to show up in life, and to have that as something that's really important for us, and that there's steps that we have to go through to get there. Those steps, we can call them sacrifices, right? We have to sacrifice something, and so it's important to decide what we're going to sacrifice and what price we're going to pay, because there's always a price. But what price do I want to pay? And where we take ownership, we make the decisions. What I call, instead of this, sometimes we decide and sometimes we slide, right?
Yeah.
In other words, we just kind of let inertia take us over, or impulses, or whatever it is. It's all natural for us as human beings, but to taking more ownership is, all right, I need to make more intentional decisions here. And we never get it right the first time. It's a journey. Okay. And so we're on that journey. And so that's the whole thing about beating us. That doesn't really help us to continue to take steps, right? So just to, we're learning as we go. We're growing muscles that we've never used before. And that's always hurts, and it's never comes naturally. Let's go back to music. You like to use music as the analogy for our time here together. When you start to learn a musical instrument, it's frustrating. It never comes easy, and it's so easy to give up because it's just so unnatural. Yep. Because you're learning, there's things in the brain that's going on, there's things in the muscle memory and all this stuff that you're forcing. And then, but little by little, then it begins to come right. So it's that whole thing about just exercising muscles that we've never used before, and just be aware that I'm exercising these muscles. It's awkward, it's hard, okay, but little by little, things will become a little bit more natural.
Love it. And I love what you said about you don't go uphill unintentionally. That's such a great analogy. So now let's talk a little bit about the jam room. So now, how do you structure your workspace in order to be productive and to have some of those building blocks that you were mentioning before to help you be successful?
Well, my work, I think the work I do is very simple in that regard. You can see my setup. Well, you can see at least from this
version of it.
Right? You can't see all the papers and little index cards that I have around, but I have my workspace. I think it's always important for us to have a space. And that's, I think, another challenge with people working from home. I think COVID taught that to a lot of people as well. And people that shifted to hybrid and all that, is work began to overflow into their personal lives.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to decide. What is our relationship with work at home, and what relationship will it have with our priorities and with our personal life? I am, I'm single. I don't have a family. I don't have children. So it's, I really manage all of my space and my time more than I have more of that space than other people would have. So, but to your audience, we just have to be very intentional about having a space where we work and sort of keeping that. And that, when we talk about people that do mindfulness or yoga or spiritual exercises, it's about having sort of a sacred or space set apart for that. A space set apart for work, then a space set apart for family and all that. I think it's, for us as human beings, it's helpful to setting up those boundaries. And also, I think when we have a space dedicated to that, we work better. We're more productive. We get into the mindset, into the zone. But again, it's about people knowing themselves, right? It's nothing's written in stone on how to best do it. But so I have my little space where here when I'm on screen. And then I just kind of move off to the side where I can do work, where I reflect, where I write, and things like that. I also have a little terrace where I sometimes want to go out there where I can spend, get some fresh air and also more just reflect. I know not a whole lot of science to just my setup. And then my digital setup is, I have a CRM, which is important. Everybody just needs to find the little tools and digital mechanisms that help them to be effective, so that they're not spending time where they don't want to spend time. So I don't want to spend time on all the manual stuff. Now, these are decisions that I make, right? I want to have things automated. I don't want to spend time on my finances. So I have an accounting team that does that. It's not where I want to spend my time and my energy. It's draining for me, right? And it's stuff that I put off. And then people, when we procrastinate, that's like a cloud that hangs over us. So what do you procrastinate on a continual basis, and can you outsource that?
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you find people to outsource to?
I think going back to what I said about networking groups, entrepreneurship networking, that you kind of find people that do stuff that you don't want to do or don't know how to do. So that's
Mm.
one way. Then there's others. There's a bunch of platforms that you can find stuff, Upwork, Fiverr, or just through your own connections, ask around, and you'll find people. That's how I find. I found a social media team who does great work. Nowadays, there's so much stuff that you can outsource overseas, which is financially smarter.
Yeah.
Like my social media teams, and I live in Mexico right now, in Mexico City. My social media team is in Cancun. If I were to do that with an American team, with a team in the States, it would be a lot more expensive. A lot of people would use services from the Philippines. So many other places nowadays that you can get all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a few people on the show that have talked about, overseas type of Philippines and stuff like that
Mm-hmm.
for outsourcing things. Um, what do you think would be the barriers to people not wanting to delegate?
Again, sometimes it's personality styles, but so we have to pay attention to that. Sometimes it's we're afraid. We're afraid to let go of certain things. We want to control, right? When we have control, we sort of have a sense of security. Okay, but people need to look at that. Is my wanting to have control over thing, is it a healthy expression, or is it unhealthy in my life? Does it up my stress? Does it make me? It takes up all my time so that I never have time for other things. We all have some aspect of wanting to control things because we want to take ownership. We
Yeah,
want to know,
we're entrepreneurs.
right? But we just need to know where that serves us well and where it might get in the way. Sometimes it's a personality thing or what people have experienced in life, and so they become more controlling. And trusting others to do our work, and it's sometimes that's hit and miss as well. Right? I hired someone the other day, and it's been kind of a scam. I realized over time that thankfully I didn't invest a lot. It was just a few $100. But it was, it became fishy. And so we just need to be careful about those things, who we outsource to it and do our due diligence, look people up. Nowadays, there's so many sites that you can look up if things are trustworthy. That's why some of these other platforms like Upwork or Fiverr, that they can be more trustworthy because there's accountability mechanisms in place. Yeah. Right. If you have people that just reach out to you through LinkedIn or Facebook, and you can't always trust. You got to verify. So I don't know if I've answered that question.
I think you did. We've gone through this on the show before about just the control aspect of it. I agree 100%. I think a lot of it is that because otherwise, when it comes down to it, if you don't like something or if you're not the best at it or if it's not your highest margin, right? I mean,
Right.
we all get into business for a reason. There's something that we do that nobody else does like we do. So
Right.
why are you getting yourself all messed up in the weeds, right? Of doing all this other stuff that really is not your gift zone when you
Yes.
could just hire somebody else. And then when it comes down to it, that person that you hired, that's their business. That's what their gift
Mhm.
zone is. So you're
Right.
basically leveraging their gift zone for something that you're not even really interested in doing in the first place, right?
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it can be financial, maybe at the beginning for some people, right? Because it means
Mm,
investing more money, so that could be hold them back. But I think going back to what we said about there's so many different services that you can find that aren't as expensive as you might think.
yeah.
And learning to outsource, and again, playing to our strengths, because that's when going back to our sort of like this umbrella topic that we're talking about is that when we play to our strengths, we're more successful. We're more energized. We're showing up better. When we have to do these things that do not play to our strengths, we find it more draining. So I think when we're able to find that sweet spot, and play those chords if you want to use the music, right? And play to our strengths, and that's better for everybody.
I agree. And then nowadays with the you know increasing use of AI tools as well, now all of a sudden there are quite a few little bits of your business that you can start to outsource to an AI tool that,
Hmm.
now that's sort of that in between part where maybe you can use an AI tool to get some of these things done while you build up this income in order to hire somebody a little bit more full
Of
time,
course. Yes,
you know.
that's huge. Technology can be another thing, I think, for some people, depending on the generation and the ages. Technology can be scary for some people. And so that can be another thing that holds people back.
Great.
Because we get stuck or blocked with, I don't know what to do with this. Right. Well, again, that's why outsourcing is important. Get someone else to do it. If you can.
Yeah. I'm like, so for the way I think about it is that, hey, if you're doing everything in your business and you're happy and, everything is going, smoothly, you're paying your bills, you've this work-life balance, well, then great, keep doing it that way. That's what you want to do. But
That's
if
right.
there's something, I think that the main thing that you said earlier is if it's draining you,
Hmm.
then it's affecting your ability to show up for your other clients. And at
Right.
that point, now it's time to take a look at that and say, okay, maybe it is actually affecting my business, and start to look at
Hmm.
maybe finding
Yeah.
somebody else to do it for you.
Oh,
So
thank
it's time for
you.
your guest solo. So tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
Exciting. Well, I'm really more at the beginning of things. So there's a lot of excitement of possibilities.
Mhm.
So there's some really speaking engagements, educational engagements that are coming up, which are exciting. Getting new clients, really just seeing the changes that people go through, and with the work that I do with them. That's exciting. And one of the things that and this goes back to everything that we're talking about, is I use a tool with people called the Results Accelerator and the Results Roadmap, which is, in my view, very a sophisticated and also in-depth journey, which doesn't take a long time. We can easily get it done in a month, but it's about finding what are my values, what are my needs as a human being, what is my identity, right? And what are my goals, and long-term and short-term. And then we map that out in a very visual way on what everything that helps me to get to every goal that I want and everything that gets in the way. And I differentiate between what a goal is and what a result is, as I was saying before. For the example, simple thing is I want to lose weight, right? That's a goal. But then what does that do for me on a deeper level? And when we're able, and I think differentiating that and understanding, identifying that as human beings, I think is very important.
Yeah.
So what are our goals, and then what are the results? And then we call it the results roadmap. Is what is the roadmap? What is the critical path to success to get those results that I want? And so we map that out for people. And so it's a great journey of knowledge of self, and knowing all those things, as we said, the things that playing to our strengths, and understanding what can be the obstacles along. Because when we identify that, we're much more intentional, much more aware about the way we go about things.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, because I mean, we always talk about the why, right? There's got to be a reason why you do something, and
Mhm.
it's got to be a little bit deeper than, well, I just want to lose weight. Like, what?
Right.
Why? Why does it matter to you that you would lose weight? Does it make you feel better? Does it?
Hmm.
There's those. That's something that's real, but losing weight is not. That's not unless
It's
there's
sort
an
of
actual connected to something, right?
right. Usually it's a means to an end, but oftentimes we confuse it and we make it an end in and of itself when it might not necessarily be that. So there's a deeper discussion and conversation to have.
Love it. So how do we find out more about you and about your business?
Yes, Tim. So they can find me on my website is bracketalliance.com, bracket with double T. And I say alliance because my work with people is I make alliances with them, and to help them forge an alliance with themselves and with their priorities, what's important to them. So bracketalliance.com, on Instagram and other social media platforms at Matthew Brackett, on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Matthew Brackett Official. So those are the places where people can find me. So yes, reach out or however engage.
What would you say would be the ideal person that would get the most out of, working with you?
There's a few. It really has to be someone that's interested in develop in in improving themselves. Sometimes we go out to coaching services or other types of services because we want to fix things outside of us. And oftentimes, fix the things outside of us has to start on the inside. So it has to be someone that's willing to do that work. Otherwise, they'll find it very frustrating. Right. So it might really, my service is more towards senior leadership people. I meet people at the intersection of their personal and professional, so that they are positively influencing their inner and outer circles, leading better, loving better, and living better. And so that they're not sacrificing, and oftentimes unconsciously sacrificing, their priorities at the altar of entrepreneurship, at the altar of success, at the altar of career growth. I'm not saying saying anything negative, but all that is important. But what prices are we paying, maybe unconsciously, that we don't want to pay?
Love it. Yeah, so there has to be some self-awareness that, the problems need to be, I always say that you can't really change other people, but you can change yourself, right?
Right.
So that's where you start.
Yeah. And if I were to put it simply, I would say, if someone is, two things simply, is if you are feeling stuck and when we get stuck in ourselves, also, then we just we get confused. We don't know. This type of relationship is so important for us. So that's how we discover answers, not in the other person, but through talking, through communication is how we discover, how we get clear. And so I provide people with that space. And also then with my education and background, I hopefully provide a very quality filled space. But if you're stuck, right, in any area of your life, or if you're in a transition, which can also mean sometimes you're getting stuck as well. And in both of those areas, we need greater clarity.
Okay.
And we need a path to success. So if anyone's feeling stuck, or they're in a transition, and stuck can be in your personal life, it can be in your professional life, in the way you lead, in your business, it can be in your relationships, in your committed relationships, in your marriage, whatever it is, there can be those moments. So I do all of that.
Awesome. Matthew Brackett, thank you for rocking out with me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for the opportunity.
It's been a lot of fun. To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.